The New Britain Board of Education, providing students with a high-quality education.
Calling this meeting to order. The time is now 6:04. If we could all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. Leah, if you would lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If the clerk could please call the roll.
Mr. Nicholas Mercier?
Here.
Ms. Gail Sanders Connolly?
Here.
Ms. Monica Dawkins?
Here.
Mr. Merrill Gay?
Here.
Mr. Anthony Kane?
Here.
Ms. Diane Leja?
Here.
Ms. Annie Parker?
Here.
Ms. Diana Reyes?
Here.
Ms. Nancy Rodriguez?
Here.
Dr. Violet Jimenez Sims?
Here.
Okay, we are all here. If we could just take a moment for meditation and keeping our thoughts, all of our various families, and making sure that everyone stays safe through this winter storm. The next item on our agenda is a welcome from D. Loretto Elementary and Middle School, but since we are not at D. Loretto Elementary and Middle School, we will not be doing that. That brings us to public participation. There are two people who are signed up to speak. The first is Mr. Alderman, I believe this is Danny Solano, who signed up.
I don't really need it, but good evening, everyone. Alderman Danny Solano. I came to wish you greetings, obviously ahead of time for the holidays, but also congratulations to the new folks who have been elected on the Board of Education, and for all the those who are well versed already. You have plenty of great mentors up there on the board. It's just wanted to send my greetings as a liaison again for the Board of Education. I trust that we'll continue to be able to work together. If there's any questions, I encourage you to contact me and talk with me anytime about my perspective on some things. Sharon Boulogne Saavedra will also be a liaison to the Board of Ed. But she had some other family things that came up today, so she will extend her regrets. But I'm sure you'll see her quite a bit, here at the Board of Ed meetings. We're looking forward to a cooperative, bipartisan approach throughout the next 2 years. We're excited by the prospects and some of the things that are happening, both from economic development perspective, which only increases the opportunity to be able to provide further funds and resources for both education and everything else throughout the city. So thank you for having me here, and wish you a very, very good 2 years. And again, please stay in touch and communicate, and I'm sure that through the superintendent as well as the Board of Ed will continue that relationship. So take care.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lerner. Next to speak, next person who signed up is Alderman Christian Rosado.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to echo some of the statements made by Mr. Majority Leader Salerno. I want to thank each and every one of you that were successful in this past election, and for those that are here returning. I look forward to the next 2 years in order for us to have a better spirit of cooperation. I know that after an election season, after there's competition, it's a little difficult to now make that transition. But working together and having a spirit of cooperation will always be more powerful than competition. And so I look forward to working with each and every one of you. I know many of you, some of you are here that I'd like to develop a bigger relationship with. But I do want to tell you that on this new council, this new leadership that we have, we're going to be very proactive in connecting with the education system and visiting schools throughout the city. We're going to take it very serious, and we would love to connect with each and every one of you. Also, if there's any way that we can exchange phone numbers so that we all can have the opportunity to be able to contact each other in case there's anything that we would like to discuss. And also, I'd like to talk about some of the issues that happened over the last week and a half. I want to give a lot of credit to those in the school district that tried their best to be able to keep the children and parents and faculty calm in the midst of some situations of threats of any shootings, et cetera, that were going to happen at the school. And after everything happened, I got a lot of calls from parents that were just like shaken up. And I do want to give a shout out to Alderman Smedley, who had given me a call a couple of days ago to kind of give me a little refresher on all the steps that the school district takes in the midst of a situation, and I really applaud him for that. And it got me to learn a few things that moving forward, whenever there are parents, and of course, parents, they love their children, and in a situation like that, we understand that they're going to panic, but that, now we have, a way to be able to express to them the steps that you take, in the midst of a situation like that. So again, I applaud, the police department, I applaud the school district in taking all the necessary steps to make sure that our children are safe. So without further ado, I pray for each and every one of you. I pray that God guides you in all of your decisions, and I look forward to working with you together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Lerner, if you could, I know that we have our contact information with our public numbers that are posted. If you could possibly have those sent over to the county council, and they could ask for their contact information in return. Thank you. Is there any other, that's all who signed up. Is there any other member of the public who would like to address the board at this time? Any other member of the public? Third and final time, is there anyone who would like to address the board? Seeing none, I declare public participation closed. Next item on our agenda is the election of officers. Just for those who are new board members and just as a refresher to the rest of us, the offices are opened for nominations in this order: first president, and then we vote on president. Then the office of vice president is open for nominations, and we vote on vice president, and then finally secretary. Anyone may nominate any member of the board. Nominations do not require a second, but the person who is nominated has the option to accept or decline, after which we vote via a voice vote unless there is a request from board members to have the vote be written ballot as well. So with that, I'd like to open up nominations for the office of president.
Is it possible for us to caucus first?
If there's a wish for the parties to caucus, yes, we could definitely caucus first.
Could we please?
Any objections to that? Okay, then we will stand at recess for a brief caucus, and we'll come back together to do our voting. Thank you. Okay, we are back in session. I'll once again open the floor to nominations for the office of president. Ms. Parker?
Okay, I nominate Merrill Gay for president.
Okay. Mr. Gay, do you accept? Yes. Okay. Are there any other nominations for president? Going once, going twice. Okay, then I'm going to declare nominations closed. This will be by voice. There's one nomination, and that's for Merrill Gay as president. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations, Mr. Gay. It's yours. You can take your placard with you.
Here you go. To write your notes now. You see how quick he left that seat though? Just a second.
Okay, so we will now have nominations for vice president.
I'd like to nominate Nick Mercier. You beat me to it. Oh,
Okay.
sorry.
You can second. Okay, do you accept?
I do.
Okay. Are there any other nominations?
I would like to nominate Anthony Kane.
Okay. Do you accept?
I accept.
Okay. And for people out in the audience, our bylaws say that there will be a member of the other party than the president as vice president. So any other nominations for vice president? Okay. Do you want to do this by voice vote or paper ballot? Hearing nobody calling for paper ballot, let's do this by voice vote. So, all votes for Nick Mercier? This will be a
Voice or hand or?
For
I think we should
clarity.
do a hand.
Yeah.
Yes, let's do a hand vote.
Okay.
Okay. And all votes for Anthony Kane. Okay. That was 8-2, so Nick is vice president.
So we get to do more shuffling of chairs.
Let's go on the common store.
Yeah, right. Okay, and so while we're moving around, now open up nominations for secretary. Is there a nomination for secretary?
Nominate Gail Sanders Collins.
Okay, and I'd like to nominate Violet Sims. Are there any other nominations for secretary? Okay, yes.
Rock, paper, scissors?
Do the two of you accept?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so we'll do this by hand vote again. First, Gail Conley Sanders.
I'm new.
Okay, and everyone voting for Violet Sims. Okay, that's a 6-4 vote.
She gets yours.
Oh, yeah, no, you said
Okay, so now you get.
You get to bounce.
One more. Oh, it's Diane.
No, because usually it's the,
Oh, okay. I'll sit here.
yeah, you go there and she goes there.
There, I was
Yeah,
gonna say,
yeah.
come down, have more there.
Oh, the joy of musical chairs.
Yeah. All right, so now we'll move on to the appointment of committee chairs. And I will appoint, am I doing this right? How do I appoint it, or do we?
Technically, appointment of committee chairs is up to the president.
Okay.
The only exception is
Mr.
policy.
Yes, so the committee chairs will be Nick Mercier for policy, as per our bylaws, Violet Sims for curriculum, Annie Parker for personnel, and Gail Conley Sanders for finance. All right. So.
Cheapskate stays.
And in that vein, do we want to bounce up the attorney and do executive session now before we do reports?
Absolutely.
Okay. So I'm going to entertain a motion to amend the agenda to move the executive session with the attorney up now so that we can get that over and not pay for an attorney to sit around and wait.
So moved.
Second.
All right, so we are taking the superintendent, the attorney, who else needs to? Janice Gregonols. Yes, to go into executive session, and I have a motion to go into executive session.
Motion.
Second, and then we have to vote it.
All right, all in favor of going into executive session to meet with the attorney?
Aye.
Okay. So we will now proceed to the superintendent's report.
Thank you. First off, congratulations, everyone, and welcome to the board. So tonight, I did give a printout. I'm not going to read all of it, but I do want to highlight a couple of things. One is this is sort of our year one on staff wellness opportunities, trying to offer all New Britain staff different opportunities, on-site, off-site, in terms of seminars and those sorts of activities. We're partnering with the YWCA. And at the top portion of the Talent Academics, you'll see some of the upcoming events that we have planned. Janice forgot to put that we did do yoga at Alvarium. Oh, that's right, Gail was there. That was fun.
It was fun.
It was a Sunday morning, we had yoga, and then we had tasting after, which was a nice day. Anyway, so these are some of the different things that we're bringing in. We do have some of our moms who are opening up a catering business, and they're baking cookies and bringing the desserts in, which is really nice. So we do have one on, we do have a kickoff in mid-January all the way to the end of February with a walker tracker. It's a competition to see which staff member can put in the most steps. All people have, we can get the walker trackers through Anthem. We are doing financial planning. We're doing a little bit of everything based on a survey we sent around to all staff to see what their interests were. And I know that the spinning class last week was a success. That one was held at the high school. We have different events happening throughout the district. So just, it's our way of putting our toes in the water and really trying to address that balance for our staff as well. As far as our curriculum renewal, I know Dr. Sims, you'll probably go over some of this anyway, so I left that for you to read where we're at with our prerequisite classes that we have 5 of our pilot schools undergoing right now to get them ready to try their first unit in curriculum around student-centered instruction. So we do have a presentation coming up soon from Jen Wright, our STEAM coordinator, so I just gave you some information there as well. Under operations though, I did want to update you. I know I spoke to you 2 months ago when I talked with you about partnering with Construction Advocacy Professionals, which is an outside agency. And I'll say it again because now you're right next to me. Don't shoot the messenger, but about 3 months ago, I started inquiring at the State Department around projects, because I've heard we have projects that are opened, and I said, I don't even know what you mean. These are our capital bonding projects, some of the bigger projects. And so Mr. Kane and I had a phone conference with 2 folks from the State Department, and we have 13 open school construction projects dating back from 1998. Kevin, am I right? Was it 98?
2000.
Sorry, I was 2 years off. I'm sorry. So dating back from 2000 to the present. And when I say they're open, they need to be closed out. It's an audit, and Kevin can explain a little more to you on that than I can. But I wanted you to see that we did have to hire an outside consulting firm to help us get some of these closed. And the 7 that you see that are in process now basically means that it's now ready for Mr. Moore to find different papers and documents that will go with it to close those first 7 out. But we have another remaining 6. And this is our responsibility to close out these projects. There's probably dollars that are attached to these for our city, and it's only right that we close them out and give them their dollars. So I have a feeling this is going to take a few months, maybe more. I'm being nice right now, and I'll let Kevin talk. Did you want to talk right now from where you are?
Only if you want to hear me.
Yeah, well.
Yeah.
What's the oldest?
What you have in front of you tonight is 13 projects. When the state looks at a project, anything under $5 million is a different prerequisite for projects under $5 million. Under $5 million, you're allowing the consultant to basically review all the invoices, tie them back to the records at the city's records, and actually send them paperwork here and they'll sign off on it. Anything over $5 million, it's really the same process, but all those invoices and all the actual records, et cetera, have to be sent to the state. In both sides, you're seeing a meeting with the state. So last week, I reached out to the consultant. That's what you're seeing right here. She gave me some verbatim. I kind of rewrote it a little bit. So last week, she basically said, I gave her things. I said, what's the status? Is it closed? Is it pending? Is it in process? And she came back and wrote down in process. And really, my verbiage down below is what in process was. Majority of the documentation is sitting with her right now. She's saying there's additional information. I didn't really ask what the additional information is. And once she receives that, they will schedule a meeting with the state. When you schedule a meeting with the state, you actually will go up to the state for 2-3 hours, and you'll sit with the state, and they'll go through the paperwork really quickly, and then sign off on those projects, if they meet. And then there's, as you can see, there's 6 more projects up above. My guess the projects up above are the larger projects. So when we're talking about a $5 million project or less, a lot of times roofing projects are $2-3 million projects, so they're under $5 million. When you look at a renovation additional project, for the most part, they're probably over $5 million. So there's probably more paperwork involved in that. Now, when you look at a school construction project, the old rules on school construction projects is when you get reimbursed, you submit your invoices up and so forth. Let's say you have a $10 million project. and you submit your invoices, the state usually comes back, they estimate what the eligible costs are. So I think we all know that New Britain gets about 79% back on every dollar you spend. But sometimes there's ineligible costs as part of that 79%. So your reimbursement may be 75% of $10 million. So when you send your paperwork to the state on every grant payment, there's an estimate out there. And when they do the estimate, they reimburse you 100% less 5%. So there's always about a 5% holdback. So at the end of the project, that 5% will probably come back to the city. At the same time, I've seen in the past where they didn't hold back enough, where it might be like, since we're as a finance director, there were times when we did capital projects and the state reimbursed them their, 95 cents on that dollar. By the time when they did the audit, they said, hey, geez, we had too many eligible costs out there, so you might owe me $1,000 or $100,000. So I can't really tell you what the reimbursement's going to be, no idea, but it's really based on what's eligible. So sometimes things aren't eligible, and that's where we stand right now.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, my only question is, like, we have a better process now, so we don't
We
end up in this
will. I mean,
situation.
there's no doubt about it. I mean, I'll be very quick. When Nancy and I spoke several months ago and we reached out to the state, Ann O'Fonnell, who was the accounting manager, she actually handed me a piece of paper that showed me what she thought, based on our annual filing was outstanding projects. And all I did was take that thing, PDF up to the state, that top guy at the state, and say, hey, by the way, are these projects open to close? And of course, they came back to us and said, wow, they're open. So it shouldn't happen. I mean, it's one thing about being a little behind, but we're pretty far behind. It's nothing to pat ourselves in the back about.
So I will say too, though, I know that we are anxious to build the warehouse and the kitchen, the storage and the kitchen area behind Pulaski, so that we can be more efficient in serving meals, because we serve so many meals. That was a project we'd spoken on. But I've spoken to Mr. Moore and actually Mayor Stewart, and I just said we won't move forward on any projects until these are closed. These need to be closed out. And I think that's probably the most efficient we can be, right? No more new projects until we put away our toys, right? And make sure that we're doing it the right way. So, but I wanted to give you an update on that. They are working on it, so I thought it would be done in a week. Clearly, I was mistaken. Yeah. And the other thing I just wanted to go over with you, and it's a lot of paper, and I'll leave this for you to look at. You've got three packets or three piles. Elementary is the first, and it's in my handwriting. And this is class size. I wanted you to see, we do it now monthly. When we start the school year, we look at it weekly. By November, we taper off and we start to look at it monthly at the elementary level. And it lists out by every elementary school, the homerooms, the number of students. And we have a rating, and we can pull reports to look for classrooms that have 13 and less. We can look from 14 to 21. So the only outliers really in our elementary right now are the two on the front that I circled that show you above 26. And that is two classrooms, fifth grade classrooms at Chamberlain, who have a class size of 27. I do want to point out to you, I had a conversation with the principal at the beginning of the year. We did have a kindergarten class at that time that I think had 11 or 12 students. And I had said at that point, why don't you shift everyone up one? I mean, because her kindergarten numbers are low, which we would all love low kindergarten. And but it was her decision to leave the kindergartens low and keep the fifth grade higher. So she could have done some shifting of staff, because if you've noticed in the third and fourth grade areas, 18, 17 is low for a third grade class. Certainly what we want, but and so that is our elementary. You know that we did hire an additional teacher for Gaffney. That's already taken care of, because their kinder class sizes were large as well. And that's it. Everything is around the 24 and below. And I'll leave you to look at all of that, but I wanted to just highlight that at the elementary. At the middle school, and Mr. Four and I was looking for you earlier today before I printed this off, because I may have you speak to this a little bit. So at the middle school, we are looking for 30 students and over. What you have here represents the entire year, trimesters. So you'll see duplicates. You might see duplicates of classrooms, right? And so it's trimester 1, trimester 2, trimester 3. And Jeff, you're here to jump in if I'm misspeaking.
Yeah, these are just isolated to trimester 2 and semester 1 and full-year
Oh.
courses. Just so that way, anything saying trimester 3 that they're still making corrections on before the class starts don't show up on this.
Thank you. And then, so, historically, our chorus, our band, our tech ed, if there are numbers of workstations, and this is really by the union contract, if there are a number of workstations, so tech ed, if we have 30 computers in a computer lab, 30 students, it's a 1-to-1 ratio. So you'll notice that we do have some high numbers. I did circle the core content areas that are high. Part of it has to do with scheduling, because in some areas you see some of the lowers. I only had Jeff provide the report that showed 30. Everything, all the other numbers are below that, so I want you to know that. And there would have been how many pages of data?
Well, this report pulls 6,000 sections for the district. So.
But if they are interested in looking at that, we can provide them with the link.
Yeah.
At the
You link
entire
and then
thing.
you can sort it out and use the auto filters are in it, so you can look at it with more detail and not so much paper.
Right. And then for the high school, it's at the bottom. These are our classes with number of students. You'll see concert choir has 66, but that's standard. The high school is a very short report, and that is 30 and over as well, so you can look at that. So, what are our desires and our wants and our needs? I would say right now it'd be toward our middle school. If we could create having more teachers at our middle school to decrease class sizes, that's something that I think as we enter budget season and we think about what our needs are, our only difficulty is physical space, right? We're short on physical space. We don't really have any additional classrooms. We have our numbers at the middle school is over 800 for our 2 large middle, which is very large. And we can talk about ways to possibly mitigate that through discussion. I know that we're sending around, we're going to have a breakfast retreat. And so maybe we can start talking a little bit about how we might mitigate or reduce sizes in our 2 big middles. So anyway, that's the update on that. And I believe that is it. Questions?
Any questions? Okay, so now we'll move to committee reports. Gail?
Finance was able to meet. You'll see a couple of things on the consent agenda. One is upgrading some software. They assured me that Jeff was okay. Get the Sun Guard. And then my favorite is taking in some donations. 2 actually from the Ray and Frances Walski Foundation. One is for $1,000 to have students attend a 2-day workshop with an artist called Javon Conaway. He was born and raised in New Britain, so that's kind of cool. The other is to have, I think it's Hal's. Oh, yep, Hal's is going to a whole-souled woman at the University of St. Joe's. And then we're also taking $750 from the Tuba Christmas, which is pretty cool, for the low brass in the CSDNB org. Oh, do we have, is that one in here? I don't believe it is. But, yeah, we're taking 1,000, oh, that's right, 1,000 from US Taekwondo Center. That is it.
Okay, and curriculum? Do you have a report?
Curriculum, we met, but there's nothing to vote on today. It was all updates about the work happening at the elementary schools, especially the training in reading programs for our students who receive special education services, and how our Wilson trained person is becoming a trainer, which is a pretty big deal because that's a strenuous training, and not every district, not even close to every district, has someone who can be a trainer, and so continue to build capacity in our own district with that. So it's just kind of about the progress of that work.
Policy?
Yep, we did meet. We spent about an hour and a half going through the changes from the last legislative session, and we got about halfway through them, just talking about what the implications on policy are going to be from the last legislative session. We're going to be continuing those discussions and actually starting to revise some of the policies at our next committee meeting.
Okay, and I covered for personnel since Kathy Cheney is no longer on the board. We have a number of personnel, a number of new position requests, and we approved some job descriptions to go with those, so that'll all be coming up in new business. All right, so next we have a presentation on STEAM and POP. Jen Wright.
Just really quick board report. This weekend
Oh, yes,
is
right.
Magical Feast. If anybody hasn't gotten their tickets yet, I highly recommend it. It's a great show. I don't know if it's sold out or not, though, so don't quote me on
And I
that.
will provide all of you a copy of all the concerts that are going to be happening in the next 2 weeks. Kristen?
I think Ms. Lerny sent out a number of.
Oh, she did? Okay, good.
Or Ms. Clerkin did.
You're so efficient. Thank you.
It's hard to.
I know.
Just pick one.
Okay.
That's all right. I'll just. Yeah, perfect. Hi, everybody. I'm Jen Ray. I'm the Assistant Coordinator of STEAM and Summer Learning. I'm pleased to be here tonight. Thank you for listening to this presentation. This has been a couple times since I've been back, and I'm very excited to share with you the new things that we're doing in the district, and to share with you the successes that we've had over the past trimester. And congratulations to everybody, and I look forward to working with you. All right, and my social media. Yeah. Perfect. All right. So we're going to start with STEAM. We're actually going to talk about 3 programs today. It's all the fun words: STEAM, Plus, and POP. Okay. So we're going to start with STEAM, and as you know, this is the 2nd year of our STEAM initiative, kindergarten through 8th grade. STEAM is science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. And we've been able to provide this enrichment for all students in grades K to 8. This is our 2nd year running. So what did we accomplish in trimester 1 this year? I will say that our level of rigor amped up this year. We had a 1 year of let's get this under our belts. This year we've included more literacy activities, more engaging activities, and more student-centered activities. And the way we're doing that is looking at our own practice and training teachers and using practices from the next generation science standards. And we pick and choose what fits with our program. So one of the components that we've been using is using the driving question board, which a driving question board is a large question, an overarching question that lasts throughout the entire unit. So what students do is they take a look at that, and then they're shown a phenomenon or something like an entry event. And then they ask questions. They say, what do you want to know about that? What's interesting to you? What do you notice and what do you wonder? And the teacher records, or the students record. You can see they've done it on sticky notes here, but some of them do it electronically. We use a website called Padlet. That's very interactive, especially with teachers who have a large volume of students. And what they do is they revisit it. It's a thread throughout the entire project. They keep revisiting it. What questions did we answer? What questions are coming up? And it's just kind of a way to tie the entire trimester project together, because they do see the students once every 6 days. So that practice was a real challenge for teachers at the beginning of this year. It was a real switch in how they delivered their instruction. And we'll push back, and then 3 weeks in they said, you know, they're asking these great questions. And that's what we want. So we want students to be able to ask the questions and answer the questions. And I told them, you better have more questions and answers up by the end of the trimester, because that's what we want. This learning doesn't stop. There's not a cap on the learning at the end of the trimester. And let's keep piquing their interest and making them these lifelong learners.
Jen, can you just also just let them know it's every 6 days for our elementary, and how many minutes for those in those 6 days?
So it's about 2 hours and 45 minutes. So it's nice because they're able to do some whole groups, some small group work, and some center-based work. And for our younger students, they're able to continue with the practices that the teachers are doing in the morning. They do their morning message for kindergarten. They're doing message of the day. So that consistency is very helpful, especially for our youngest learners. And also, we've been able to incorporate a lot more literacy this year, which has been fantastic. We do a right into the day every day. And it's an interesting way to kind of enter the lesson, settles people down, makes you think out of the box a little bit. And of course, one of the hallmarks of our program is team building. We know that students won't be successful in STEAM unless they know how to be part of a team. So teaching students how to be a functioning member of a team. You don't have to like the person, you just have to learn how to work with them. So it's a lifelong skill. So you can see some of the activities they're doing here. Collaboration is of the essence. So these are just a little overview of the units that we've done in trimester 1. Our first unit was on drumming. And all of our units take from NGSS standards as well as the Common Core math standards and literacy standards for that grade level. We work in grade bands. We have a K1, a 2-3, and a 4-5 grade band at the elementary, and then our 6-8s have a separate grade band. So this first trimester we did drumming, which was about the cutest thing I've ever seen. Students were learning how sound works, making a physical representation of what they hear, drawing sounds. So using a lot of different parts of their brain. They talked about vibrations, they talked about pitch and tone, and they talked about how to make different sounds. They ended up branching out from drumming and making other musical instruments. They were making guitars and other string instruments and blowing it. Oh my God, it was chaotic and fun and loud, and the teachers are like, we're so glad this unit is over. And their product at the end was for them to be able to create a song or a chant using the different rhythms, and they made drums out of pretty much anything. Laundry detergent containers and Pringles cans and an oatmeal container with some wax paper stretched across it. They were creative, and even our littlest learners can work together. And what I liked about the kindergarten and grade 1 band is that a lot of the teachers reached out to people that they had in their own communities or in their own friend circle, and had them come in and be guest speakers. And we're finding that teachers in the different schools are using their local resources to enhance the children's learning. So we are getting that little differentiation piece. All right, so our grades 2 and 3 did bridges. Hands down, most popular unit this trimester. This was super fun. So the students' challenge was to be able to create a bridge that could support a certain amount of weight. And it could be a bridge for animals or for humans. And they had to justify what was going to be part of their bridge, like what would be on the other side, how would they attract animals to go across their bridge. So not only were they thinking about the construction piece, but they had to think about their environment. They had to think about also the social implications. They did study the Beehive Bridge, which was nice for a real local connection. And then we have guest speakers again coming in at Smith. We have the architect of the Bee Bridge coming to Smith Elementary School, and they're going to speak to the students. But the students had a phenomenal time. Teachers took this to center activities. They didn't just build with cardboard and paper. They built with our Kiva planks. They built with our Legos. They built with popsicle sticks, craft sticks. Anything you can imagine. The best part was, a lot of it they took apart and it's reusable, so there's not a lot of waste. They also made a lot of literature connections in this unit. Grades 4 and 5, also a really fun unit, was forces of flight. So the students had to talk about the 4 forces of flight, and they had to create paper airplanes. So it's basically a unit about paper airplanes. How fun is that? They got to come in and they had to try out different models of paper airplanes. They got to experiment and engage in the inquiry process. Figure out what design worked for them, and they had to engage in these competitions where they found out whose plane could stay aloft for the most amount of time, what could fly the most, and how could they change the course of direction. And they were the weather cooperated, so they were able to go outside and do a lot of this. But not only did we learn about forces of flight, a lot of math. So we're sneaking the math, and then the kids are like, I didn't do math today, I measured, and they're like, and there we go. So that's what we want. We gotta, they're not, we're trying to explicitly make those connections for students too, like so that they realize they can be successful in a subject that might be challenging for them, and and they could find any subject. We want them to feel successful. Right now, everybody is engaged in chaos, and what I mean by that is our challenging, high interest areas of study. There are mini units that are teacher passion projects. So we gave our teachers the opportunity to create mini units, about 2 to 3 cycles long, where they could pick anything that they were interested in as long as they could relate it to the standards, which is pretty easy to do when you have STEAM. It's a pretty long acronym. So they were able to choose some of our district material. We had purchased some robotic sets. We had Ozobots and Dash and Dot robots. They had different Lego sets. Some of them created their own units. We have a unit about the Titanic that's happening. We have a unit in K and 1 where they're doing sink and float. They're doing lots of experiments. We're doing some basic chemistry. The students are doing exothermic and endothermic reactions. So it's really interesting to see how the teachers really responded to the opportunity to create something that they were felt that they were an expert in or had a lot of knowledge and really wanted to share it with students. So this has been a lot of fun. And there's a quick little video right here. If you want to see what engagement looks like, look at this. This is grade 2. So, I mean, I think you can see the sense of wonder that is going on in that classroom, as well as every student being engaged. You can also see they're going to lay on their bellies. They're going to lay on their bellies. They're going to maybe hustle a little bit in the classroom, but they are all excited, and they program them. They use the Blockly to code the robots and make them do what they want. And so the students, we have a lot of students who are very interested, and we hope to continue to kind of grow that robotics program at the elementary level. Speaking of robotics, our grades 6 to 8 had their first foray into robotics with the Lego Mindstorms this year. Loved it. We spent a lot of time preparing them to be responsible with the kids. Those kids have over 1,000 pieces in them. They build the robots and program them, and we spent a lot of time working on management. Self-regulation was well worth it, and they were very successful and were able to navigate simple mazes that they created and perform other functions. So the kids are really looking forward to another session next year. So we'll be able to grow that program by leaps and bounds. Our other unit in STEAM 6 to 8 was tiny houses. So we did a project on tiny living. Students had to create a tiny house for a particular audience. We tried to connect it to our community and think about who in the neighboring community could benefit from living in a tiny home, and would it be a viable investment for the town. So, the city, sorry. So the students used computer-aided drafting software to kind of create their home, and then they had to evaluate and reevaluate. And we had homes without toilets, and so we said, okay, let's go back to the drawing board. So they were able to use that design process to go back and sort of update their home as needed. So, there's a couple videos in here that I feel like I'm filming a long time. So. The other portion of the day that students do not spend in STEAM during their Plus Enrichment Day, they have 4 periods of enrichment, and one of those periods is, 2 of those periods are STEAM. Right, 5 periods? Right? 4, yeah. So they have 2 periods of STEAM. They have 1 period of seminar, which is an advisory class where they're learning about career skills and 21st century skills, and they either have culinary, art enrichment, or creative expressions. So in culinary, they're continuing to work on food safety, simple recipes, getting students to cook. Our art enrichment, working on some Roy Lichtenstein-inspired pop art, and connecting it to their own cultural experiences. And in creative expressions, they made a public service announcement for their school. So this particular student did one on peace at Pulaski. So they're getting a lot of different opportunities during that PLEF day. All right, so moving into trimester 2, we've got a lot going on, and this is very exciting. There's going to be more creativity, more critical thinking, more problem solving, and much more student-centered learning. So here's what we're teaching. Okay, they're all variations on a theme. You'll see, and that theme is creativity. This process. It's creativity, and it's also very connected to the profile of the graduate. So as we talk through the activities that are coming up, you'll be able to notice the 3 cognitive and the 2 personal strategies that we're going to be reinforcing throughout this second trimester. We're talking about processes. We're moving on from the engineering and design process to the creative process, and that last visual right there is the invention process, because we are going to be doing Invention Convention. We want to make sure that in this trimester, more than any other time in our whole CSD&B careers, that we are stepping aside and we are letting students taking charge of this learning. We want to have that teacher as the facilitator and the student really owning. They can't be successful if they don't own it, so they really have got to own it, and you'll see what I'm talking about. We're going to build some creative muscle in kindergarten to 3rd grade. They're going to be using material in unique ways. they're gonna be problem solving, they're gonna be doing a lot of this similar activities that the students are doing in Invention Convention, but in ways that are really meaningful for them and developmentally appropriate. A lot of center-based learning, a lot of choice. Giving students choice in materials, processes, groups, which is sometimes a little bit of a challenge. And they're gonna be focusing on designing, drawing models, making models, and using some peer-to-peer feedback. Our 4 to 5 students are doing this. We're doing it, Invention Convention, and we are going to compete. So we are really, really excited. The goal of our Invention Convention is to send a contingency to the State Invention Convention, which happened on May 2nd at UConn. So each school will have a local Invention Convention. We're going to limit it. We said we're going to start with grades 4 and 5. That's a good starting point. Connecticut Invention Convention agreed. They said they were so excited to see New Britain represented at the professional learning that we had, and they were willing to provide us with a lot of support. So we will capitalize on that support and bring those guys in to help us roll this out. But again, students are going to be having to identify everyday problems and how they think they can solve them. And so that is going to be a huge challenge, and wait for the report on that. And that's going to be very interesting. We're having our big kickoff tomorrow with teachers and administrators.
And if you notice on on my report, I highlighted for you guys that we need board members to be judges.
Right.
So I put that in yellow.
I'm very trained in this area.
Okay,
Coming
good.
up.
I'm a STEM school.
Oh, that's awesome.
Our 6 to 8 students are also going to be participating in a very creative and innovative event. We're going to be doing a cardboard arcade. If anyone's ever seen the little movie, it's called Kane's Arcade. It's about a 9-year-old boy in California who created a cardboard arcade outside his dad's auto shop. And it ended up being a huge maker movement. So I encourage you to find that movie. It's super adorable, and it's really caught on. Some of our students in our summer learning participated in a smaller version of that. We're very excited. But we know also, looking at what our middle school students really like and trying to capitalize on that, they like entrepreneurship. We are going to let them market to a specific audience. Do you want to market to preschoolers? Do you want to market to lower grades, middle school, marketing, and who? And we'll invite those real audiences in, to families. How are you going to advertise this? So I think it will hit a lot of students in their interest, in their level of interest. And I can't wait to go play the games, because I have done this before at other sites. It's a lot of fun. They're going to get a lot of opportunity for collaboration and hopefully find something that they can really sink their teeth into. So, what do we still need to be successful? We're going to need you as judges. So we'll be reaching out to you.
Oh, sorry.
We need your recyclables. So you can drop recyclables off at any elementary school, makerspace, or middle school. We will let the secretaries know that items will be coming in for donation. Mostly a lot of boxes at the middle school, paper towel rolls. Not toilet paper. Paper towel rolls. And we always, as always, we're always looking for continuing education for our teachers. We just need to make sure that we're honing our skills and that we are keeping ahead of our students, and we're able to deliver the most current strategies to them. All right.
On the boxes, what size boxes are you looking for?
All the sizes.
All the sizes?
Yes.
I would also suggest that you do something along the lines of take apart lab, where people bring in their old electronics.
Correct, yep.
So that kids get a taste for how things are taken apart and put back together. And it really helps with the Invention Convention and when they're creating their own projects.
You hit the nail on the head. That's one of our lessons right there in the curriculum. So we are been collecting electronics and letting our teachers know collecting old electronics. No glass. That's the only thing we like. No glass. But we have lots of old tools for them to kind of fiddle with. So they can really take things apart. Putting stuff back together, we're working on, but taking stuff apart, we got it. All right, the last little bit I'm going to talk about today is our POP program. POP is it's called Powerful Original Projects. We like the acronym because it's catchy. So it's new for this year, and it's for students in grades 3, 4, and 5. It's designed to provide an opportunity to students who've shown they have the potential to think and apply knowledge in unique ways. This is how we selected our students for this program. We administered this test called the Ravens 2 to all students in grades 3, 4, 5. Okay? There was a cutoff score. Students who reached the cutoff score were then further considered, and we considered the other 2 criteria, which were cumulative grades, which were all the grades. It was their specials areas grades plus their academic grades. And we also considered teacher feedback. We asked them to give feedback on those Renzulli scales. This is what the bell curve looks like for the Ravens test. So our cutoff score was 110. You can see on the bell curve where that falls. It's at the bottom of high average. So anybody scoring 110 or above was continued on in the selection process. So of course we want students to be successful in this program, but we have to ensure that they are meeting the criteria for them to be continually enrolled. Our goal is to keep the students engaged and to keep them in the program, but they do have a contract. There will be a contract with, that will be signed by the students, the parents, and the POP teacher. The students will be setting norms, they will set norms together, kind of like ground rules. So if they're in violation of the norms, conversations have to happen. We want to make sure that the students are every student is getting the most out of it. It's an in and out program. There's a block of time and students will come and go as they have specials, lunch or recess, and other, other chorus, band, anything that they could be pulled out for. So it is kind of a fluid period, and it's also working grades 3, 4, 5 at the same time, except in schools that have a space problem and they've had to make a little bit of an adjustment. The assessment is pretty informal. We meet every 6 days. Just for about between an hour and probably an hour and 45 minutes. So the POP teachers will complete a progress report that's going to draw from the Renzulli scales, and this is purely for feedback to parents, to let them know where their students are in the process, and we're also going to look at their work habits and project completion. The students will get a clear rubric that will be discussed, and so they'll know exactly what the criteria is for success in the program. And the teachers will be in regular contact with parents, letting them know about their students' progress in the projects. So, our first project will be answering this question. How can a person, still using the driving questions, how can a person impact the world in a positive or a negative way? So our first project is actually called Impact Research. Like that, it's got a pop, it's got a punch. So we're gonna ask students to research a person. Okay? Tell us the good and the bad, and then convince us that this person has either positively or negatively impacted the world. They can pick the same, 2 people can pick the same person, and they could convince you using different evidence. So we want them to go through that process of using claims, evidence, and reasoning, another strategy from next generation science standards. So when they do their research, there are structures that we will go through briefly to talk about the project. But the students do have a choice board when it comes to the projects. This choice board has 9 possibilities on it. So here's where your student choice comes in. Not every student wants to write a report about their person. We want them to show their learning in unique ways. That was the criteria for selection in the program. Think about how you want to present your learning. You can do it, if you can tell me how your person impacted the world through a comic strip, fantastic. You want to do an informational pamphlet? If you want to create an ebook, give a TED Talk or a podcast. It depends on what your strengths are. What do you like to do? What are you interested in? And the little subgroups within that POP community will be, the teachers will take students based on their area of interest. So if you have a group of students who are interested in entrepreneurs, okay, we're all going to research entrepreneurs. That will be our focus. If you want to, you guys want to do an ebook? I'll show you how to do an ebook. So it's very tailored to the student. So, like I said before, the project will be structured. There's a lot of guidelines for students, not worksheets, templates, guidelines, checklists for students to kind of help them with the organization of the project. Students are going to be working at their own pace. They will have the choice to work solo, with a partner, or a small group. But the ante is up. If you're working with a partner, you don't do 1 project. You might do 2 projects. Okay? And at the end of this public will be invited to view the projects, and they'll give some feedback to students. And they'll get the success criteria, they'll give feedback to students, and students will be able to get that feedback from a real audience. We're really big on those real audiences. Okay? And while this is our first project, it is not our only project. The students will be able to choose projects based on their area of interest. They are taking an interest survey. We are going to offer them, if there are 3 POP teachers at the school, there will be 3 different selections for kids to choose from. And the groups will be flexible. Students will be able to complete 1 project and say after 6 weeks, okay, we're switching topics. Here's your 3 new projects. You can switch again. So we expect those groups to be rather fluid. These are some of the suggestions that have come from teachers so far that we might suggest to students, but this is really open to what students want to learn more about. We want students to be able to think about and identify things that are important to them that they want to learn, and then provide those opportunities for them through this program. And I just want to thank you for your time, and thank you for supporting all of CSD&B's enrichment opportunities.
Thank you. I have a couple questions just for my clarifications.
Sure.
When you were talking about teachers working in their STEAM units, the
Yes.
NGSS units, who's developing them and where are they coming from?
So our STEAM units are developed by our teachers. So we develop our own curriculum. We use a platform for it, like inspiration, called Define STEM. Define STEM, it was a sort of a, they do say that they're a curriculum, but we don't use them as a curriculum, we use them as a resource. So they're developed using the, we were using the Understanding by Design template, but now we're using the
Well, it's still
engaging, it's kind of like Understanding by Design.
Yeah.
We're using the template that was modified by Engaging Schools, and we're creating these, we're creating the units here in-house.
And there was, I don't believe there was a mention of assessments for STEAM. Is
Sure.
there assessments of
Absolutely.
children?
Yes, so we assess students in a number of ways. We have a critical thinking and problem solving rubric, scored 1 to 4. So it's spelled out, it's differentiated by grade level. So the criteria for success is laid out in that rubric, and students are introduced to that, and they work towards the standards that are set before them. Teachers might pick out just one of the attributes for critical thinking and problem solving to work and focus on for that day, and they're scored regularly using that rubric, and they are measured on that standard on the report card. The other part of the report card is 25% is teamwork, 25% is participation, and 25% is classwork. We're really working on the learning and life competencies and those 21st century skills. So a lot of their grade is about the process and not the product.
Now, my final question is this POP, it seems like a
Yes.
gifted program?
It is not a gifted program.
Okay. What are the demographics of the children that are enrolled in POP?
Thank you. I think that's a great question. So interestingly, our POP demographic represents what the district represents our district. We were when we actually looked at the list, we have about 65% Hispanic. That's about what our POP demographic is. We do have about 7%, I think, identified special education students, and we have, which is a little bit lower than our demographic, and we do have about 12% ELs represented. We have about an even split between boys and girls.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you for the presentation. Question regarding Dioletto and HALS. Are they getting STEAM or no STEAM?
So HALS is doing their own enrichment.
Okay.
They do have the enrichment teacher over there. And DiLoretto does get, they STEAM, part of the team from Pulaski and part of the team from Slade comes together and they do it one day at DiLoretto. So they are getting the opportunities.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And can I just clarify?
Of course.
POP is happening at the same time as STEAM, so
Nope,
it's like.
it is not. No, that's a good question, thank
Okay.
you. So we identified C Day originally, we picked C Day, it's one afternoon. The time is about I think it's 1 o'clock to 3:45, which 3:15. And students go in and out, it's a flexible period of time, because most students will have either special or lunch or recess, and the purpose of that is to kind of help students be able to transition in and out, have these multi-age teams, and learn those self-regulation skills.
What is the total enrollment in POP?
Good question.
You and I.
335, roughly.
Okay, I'm sorry, I need
That's
you
okay.
to repeat when it's happening, how it's happening.
Okay,
Because
every
I thought
day.
it was sort of a differentiation of STEAM is what it sounded like, maybe, but.
So it's not happening during
totally
STEAM, so
different.
STEAM happens in the morning at the elementary
Okay.
schools, happens 8:45 to 11:45, except at DiLoretto where it happens 8 to 11:45. They have a special in there. So it happens in the afternoon, so teachers will get their contractual lunch and break. Yeah, we get a break. Plan time, sorry, their lunch and their plan time. And then at 1 o'clock, they move into POP. So the number of teachers depends on the number of students that were identified per school. So the way students were identified, the students that hit the criteria were accepted. So the numbers are different at every school. So there's not a waiting list. These students met the criteria. we've taken these students.
So while they're in POP, everyone else is in
Class?
class.
Yes. So similar to things like strings, like students are responsible for making up work that they miss when they come out of class. Yeah,
And you mentioned 7% special ed
correct.
and 12% ELL. I presume they would not be getting any services during their time in POP.
No, probably, I mean, unless the EL teacher is able to support during that time. We also know that if special education students if they have a pull-out time, then that might be part of the time that they're transitioning. They might not be there for the entire time. We have, and I did not explain that well. So if they have services, like pull-out services during that time, they would still attend, then they would just come back.
And
We're
if
able
they
to
needed
transition in
support
and out.
though, I think the question, if they do need support in the
Like if they
case
have a
manager
pair of
or the,
Yeah,
or someone,
they're,
right.
I mean, they're just like STEAM, if they have regular services during that time, we encourage parents to push into STEAM. We encourage the special education teacher to come in and participate, so if that's possible to happen during POP, it's more than welcome. The groups are fairly small, the ratio is small, we tried to keep the ratio about under 12 to 1. So 12 students to one teacher. Do you want to ask another question? Sorry.
No, you answered my question about
Okay.
like the students that are missing class, are they responsible to
Right.
make up their own?
Yeah, and that's definitely been something that we've considered. And this is year one. We'll look for feedback from the teachers, we'll look for feedback from the classroom teachers, from the POP teachers, and from the students themselves. And we're trying a structure that has been presented as a best practice for working with a group of students that in these type of project-based situations. It's going to be a challenge. The transition in and out will definitely be a challenge. We're going to do the best we can to make sure that students get from. We have the first couple of weeks are actually practicing routines. How do we get to and from programs safely? How do we ensure that people are in the right space at the right time? And there's certainly opportunity for differentiation. If a program does not match a child's needs, there's certainly conversation that needs to happen around making sure that the student is in the right place, or how we can accommodate the child to be successful in that program.
I have one more question.
Okay.
Just, I understand STEAM. What is the mission behind POP? Like, what is the purpose behind that, and why is it different than what you're doing with STEAM?
Sure. Okay.
I may have missed it, but I.
That's okay. So, let me see if I can correctly state this. We were challenged by the superintendent to develop a program that would perhaps touch many of our students who hadn't had an opportunity for this kind of a small group instruction previously. The list for POP looks dramatically different than lists for other programs that have happened in the past due to the assessment that was used partially. And now that all students are getting an enrichment opportunity with STEAM, felt that it was an opportunity to include some students that may have in the past not been able to participate in this kind of a program.
Thank you.
So you mentioned that some students may receive their pull-out services during the same time as POP. Is there purposeful planning to try to not schedule the pull-out services during that time so that those students aren't missing the very opportunity that they're?
I'm going to say a couple of things about that. Number one, we started late this year because of just getting the testing situation completed and getting a new program up and running. So next year, which doesn't account for this year, we'll talk about that in a second, but so for next year, the schedule will be set, so people will know when to be able, that they can pull and what time they should get support. That said, we will do our best to make sure that students get their services. So if they need to miss half an hour of POP because they have to go to to go for special ed services, they will go. They'll go. If we can get somebody to come in, even better. If we can get that special ed teacher, but I know that their caseload their schedules are tight and they have a heavy caseload. But we will work with them. It might be the POP teacher being able to touch base with the student at another point during the week, just to say, hey, how'd you do? You left and you just catch up on this. What do you think about this? And we'll modify we're gonna modify all projects according to how the student can complete the task. We, of course, if they only have 15 minutes with us, well, you know, we'll work on it. And there's that flexibility that, with that in and out time. So I think we can make it work for our students. But always looking for feedback, and always looking for ways that we can successfully keep the child and give them both opportunities.
I'm just going to add too, and this was anecdotal, this was last year feedback that we'd gotten from teachers and from administrators at PPTs, and the input that the STEAM teacher provided to the PPT team, and the, what do I want to say? The skills that our kids exemplified during STEAM time that maybe a classroom teacher, a traditional classroom teacher didn't recognize, didn't see, because opportunities weren't there. So, I mean, just in terms of ingenuity, in terms of creativity, persistence to task, all of these things that are assets, right? These are the very things we're looking for to graduate our students with, right? Those 5 attributes of the profile. And our STEAM teachers could come to the table and give evidence that it was present during their lab time on a weekly basis. So it was just nice to see a 360-degree view of a child, rather than sometimes just that one size in a classroom. So I'm excited about POP. We've had some really nice feedback from parents and students who were selected. And a couple of families who had some feedback to give, and that's okay too. And again, Jen said it, it's year 1 for us. Everything we do, we don't say we're perfect, but we work really hard and we always take feedback. And so I expect there to be some bumps along the way, but I'm excited that we have that many students being afforded a second opportunity to be enriched.
And what's been really nice is that our teachers have been very, they're like, oh, they have some real enthusiasm for doing these smaller learning communities, and that could very well carry over into other programs that are developed next year. And we're seeing the STEAM teachers being used being accessed in their buildings during their non-STEAM time. So the afternoon, a lot of them do intervention or they do push-in. But teachers are saying, help us come to the makerspace, because quite frankly, it scares us, you know. Right. And you see the kids are on they're on the floor, they're on the wobble stools, they're doing a do-si-do, and they're being accessed in ways that are to kind of enhance the curriculum. They're saying, you know what, I'm doing a math project, and I really want to use, these manipulatives. I want to use 4 kinds of manipulatives, and oh my gosh, I've never used 4 kinds of manipulatives in one setting before. How can you help us do this? And they'll take some of the strategies they've learned and work with the classroom teachers who there's a desire to collaborate and to use them. So I'm looking forward to using the knowledge that the STEAM teachers have been able to develop in their instruction and kind of bring that energy everywhere.
I just want to say that in terms of those students that don't normally get the enrichment, I know that one of the things when we had a lot of electives that the special ed kids could participate in, that was where they could excel. A lot of times, if they were having a hard time with reading, speaking, or doing math, and you put them in a situation where they get to use their hands, they could do a much better job and feel some pride in what they were doing.
Absolutely.
And I just want to say, I want to thank you for saying that teachers are encouraged to come up with some of their own projects too, because I think sometimes everything is so prescribed, and people go into teaching because they have something to give or something that they really like, they want to share with someone. So it's good to be able to do that, and I think it's good also that the students can come up with some ideas about things that they would like to learn. So I think it's a good thing.
Well, I look forward to coming back and reporting how it went. Lots of learning, always learning. And I think the teachers that we work with are always learning as well. So I think that's something that our team brings to the table. And I appreciate your time and all your questions. Thank you, very thoughtful. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. We can put the lights back on.
Please.
It's gonna hurt. So let's go back to old business and finish off the issue of setting a board calendar for the coming year.
Motion to approve the 2020 Board of Education meeting calendar.
Second.
Any discussion? Question? Yes.
Couple things. I'd like to propose amending the curriculum subcommittee time to 6:30 PM. Just because I know there have been time, like policy sometimes tends to run all the way to 7, but there have definitely been times when the policy agenda's been lighter, and we're stuck waiting until 7 to start because it's our posted time. We can always start a little later, but by setting it at 6:30, then if we're running a little bit early, we're not forced to sit around and wait. So I'd like to move to amend the curriculum subcommittee times to be 6:30.
Second.
Any further discussion on that? Motion to approve the amended calendar?
Motion on the amendment.
Motion,
Vote
okay,
on the-
motion, okay. Motion to approve the amendment.
Motion.
Yeah.
Second? Okay. All in favor of adopting the amendment to the motion? Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, now let's vote on the underlying, yeah, you got another amendment?
I just had another question to bring up just to the board. I know one of our reasons of going to having some of our meetings at the schools was to get out into the community more, and to be around in there, but looking over it, we're just in the course of the entire year, only hitting 4 schools. And so I was wondering if people would be, if there would be willingness of the board to possibly, for our January meeting at De Loretto, to make up for the fact that we didn't get a chance to meet there this month, and then possibly looking at the May 4th meeting of also going out into a school. I know that we've typically avoided the June meetings in the school because they're near the end of the year, but possibly modifying the calendar so that our May meeting and January meeting are out in some of the schools. So again, it gives us a chance to meet with and see the facilities as well.
I think when you run into May is you have concerts and you have all sorts of, I just think it'd be a scheduling nightmare, but
Right.
I would be all for it, I just think you're gonna run into issues trying to schedule.
Or could we just vote on the January one for now and bring up the others later?
Yep. Yep, so I would make a motion to amend the location for our January 7th meeting to be De Loretto Elementary and Middle School.
Second.
Okay. Motion to, or any further discussion on the amendment to add De Loretto as the location for January? Okay. All in favor of amending the calendar to meet in January at De Loretto?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, now, anything else? Any other amendments? Okay. So now, yes, there is, okay, all right.
I apologize, I was looking at this long and hard because we've run into a lot of different calendar issues over the year. I know that we have the Monday, July 13th, because Monday, July 6th is right after the July 4th weekend. But I also know that's pushing later into July and a lot of people off are on vacation, and it's hard to get a full quorum for that meeting. And maybe I was wondering if people would prefer Tuesday, July 7th. Cause we often, for at least for committees, if we can't meet on that Monday because of a holiday, we typically move it to the Tuesday after. But I don't know if a lot of people have schedules and would be gone there. I just don't, I'm not sure what the situation is for people if they know what their July is going to look like. I just know last year, when we got to the second week of July, everyone was like, this is really late.
So hold on, you're saying move it to July 7th? The week
Yeah.
of 4th of July?
The week after, it's after the weekend.
Is it after the weekend?
Yeah,
It's a
it's
Monday?
a Saturday, it's a Saturday
Ooh, that's right, it
holiday.
is.
You said 4th of July is on a Saturday?
It's on a Saturday.
So does that mean that will there be a federal holiday on Monday or Friday, or?
I believe the federal holiday is Monday the 6th, which is why it was proposed for July 13th instead of Monday the 6th.
I would keep it the 13th, because I know me personally, like, that's a day, that's only 4 days I have to take for vacation, right? Because I get a free Monday, so
Okay.
that would be a week I would go away.
Okay.
Corporate America.
Okay. So,
Anybody-
seeing nobody pushing
anybody
for
else?
that, we're gonna leave it the way it is.
Nick, you to go?
We have a seconded motion on a calendar, so motion to adopt the amended calendar.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Get on
Motion
that.
carries. All right. So now we have a consent calendar. Any board member can move to take something off consent, but the purpose of having one is these are all things that are generally non-controversial that we want to just whip through. Any objections to anything on the consent calendar?
Cute.
Yeah.
I feel like, Nick. But just on the approved special board meeting minutes, it has Nicole as being absent, but she wasn't part of the board at that time. Just having her name, that part stricken.
Okay, so you're talking about.
Oh,
A.
did you?
B, the special board meeting?
Was that the new board member orientation?
Yeah, it was the orientation.
I believe you meant Nancy Rodriguez, not Nicole Rodriguez. And
Oh,
that-
yeah, I
that-
didn't even catch that, yep.
That can be,
I just saw Nicole and I'm like, no, she's gone.
Okay, so I will take that one off, take B off, and we'll vote on that separately with the amendment.
Yeah.
Okay, any objections to anything on the consent calendar except item B? Seeing none? We adopted. Okay, item B.
motion to approve the minutes for the special Board of Education meeting from November 21st with the friendly amendment that we correct where it says Nicole Rodriguez to be Nancy Rodriguez.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, moving on to new business. We have already dealt with number 1, or A. So B,
Have to vote on it? No? Oh, okay.
so B, we have partnerships, accepting a donation from the Mayor's Trophy Charitable Fund.
Motion to accept the $500 check from the Mayor's Trophy Fund. I believe this is going for boys tennis. Yep. Oh, Joe Vavricek, yeah.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, operations, approve the opening of Smalley Elementary School student activity account.
Motion to approve the opening of the Smalley Elementary School student activity account.
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
I just have one, they had one and because the school was under construction, they didn't have it. How is it, I thought all the schools had like a little
Good
fund.
question, actually.
Kevin?
No, I mean, student activity, yeah, I mean, Anna Powell's here too, she can respond to it. Not all schools have student activity funds. And it's up to the principals to have one, so, you know, they receive, if there's trips go on in the school, they collect the fund fees, and they go into the account, and they're separated, and those monies are used for a certain obligation. But not all principals have a student activity.
So there never was one at Smalley?
Probably,
Under the old principal, and then close and then open under, is that how it works? Like you close one when a principal leaves?
no.
No.
It's just carried on. So, you know, for instance, let me talk, the student activity accounts are kind of like, accounts you really have to be wary of. Many, schools have gotten in trouble with student activity accounts, so we've actually set up some software. Several years ago, Anna Solano actually went out and acquired, we actually acquired software. Anna actually helped us acquire the software. So years ago, they used to just have their own like little checkbooks and, paper transaction, and now there's a software and accounting system like we have SunGuard that really accounts for it. At times, we may pull a student activity account away from a principal. That's happened before when we find out things aren't really operating the way they're supposed to be operating. So there have been instances where we've actually pulled it back from the principal. So not all principals want them, because there's rules tied. Smalley's new principal requested one, so she's going through the internal controls, setting up on the system, having a checking account. And every year, these student activity accounts get sent over to the auditors. The auditors actually do a testing. So when you do an audit, you actually do a testing of your records. So they actually test the records, and it's like anything, if something comes up wrong, they're going to test farther and farther if they find something wrong. It gets written up.
Got it.
Thank you.
Further questions on that? We have a seconded motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So now we move to personnel items. Approving revision to the department head, Brent High principal, job description. I guess normally this would be the personnel committee, and I was the
I was gonna
person
say
who
you were
filled
the chair
in,
then.
so I
Yeah.
gotta like,
Well, I remember a little bit about it. I think this was to add more duties to the already existing job description, and which would include more time outside of the workday.
It's to clarify the expectations for jobs, for the department heads, given the curriculum work that's coming up in the next few years, so that we get that out to them ahead of time, so that when they go through the process of applying each year, they know, that there's going to be increased responsibilities outside the workday this year and in the coming years.
okay.
Just a point of clarification for newer board members. When we get a lot of these revisions, new text is often added in bold, and underlined text is what's being struck or removed. So as you look through, sometimes it's marked up, and so you can see the things that are underlined are what's being deleted. Some of it's just cleanup, like under certification or license, changing it from state certification to be Connecticut teacher certification. Changing the exact certificate or the certification that's preferred for the position. And you can also see some of the duties, and like Mr. Foran said, it's mostly surrounding just revising curriculum, all the bolded language.
Okay. Any discussion on this? All
I
in
do
favor?
have
Go ahead.
just one question. So does this go through the administrators union, or is it just
No,
something
it's a-
that?
It's a stipend, it's still a stipend under the teacher's contract.
Okay. Any further questions? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Just, was there a motion and second? I don't believe we did.
Okay, let's get that.
Motion to approve the revision to department head, New Britain High School job description.
Second.
Okay. Motion Gail, second Violet. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. So now we have the
These are
position
related.
request.
These
Yeah.
are all related. if you
So we have, four related job description position requests related to special education programs. And
So motion to discuss together items
E, J, and M and N.
I have Danielle here.
E, J,
E, J, M, and N. Is that the motion?
Second, right?
yes.
That's
Did
the
the
second?
Yeah.
Motion and a second, okay. And so E is a position request for 2 para-educators at Gaffney in the Key program. J is preschool special ed teacher at Welk for the community-based early childhood programs. N is 3 paraprofessionals at Smith for the KEY program, and N is a special education teacher for Smith's KEY program.
Okay, so, well, our KEY program serving students with autism for our district have extremely high caseloads right now for the type of classes that we should be running and in order to meet the needs of the students in those classes. One of the classes, when we're looking at item E, is currently a flex class, which was intended for students with higher level autism that would require 3 paraeducators and a teacher for that classroom. However, the needs of the students are much greater, just based on some of the students that have come into the district and are in that class presently. So we're going to change it back from flex to a KEY classroom, where we would require 5 paraeducators and a teacher to work with the students in that classroom. So that is E. J, we are providing itinerant special education services out in the community in some of our community programs. That would be the YMCA, YWCA, CCSU, and HRA. We have 1 special education teacher with a caseload of 22 students right now at HRA, and 1 other site, I believe. And we have a growing number of students who also require services at some of the other sites that we really need at least 15 hours a week of additional services so that we can provide special education services in that setting. And I just want to state that this is something that the state really wants to see more of, and has been kind of praising us for the work that we're doing by providing services in community-based programs for our pre-K students. And so this would just be kind of following along with what we've been doing that's already been recognized. And then M and N is actually, we're looking to open a classroom over at Smith School for students in K-2 with autism that would serve some of the students that, we have a couple students in our KEY program at Gaffney right now that would be recommended for that classroom, but we also have students who are currently in some of our elementary schools that are really struggling and just need more support, and so this would allow them to have that support and also be participating in inclusion opportunities at Smith School.
Questions about any of these?
Go ahead.
So these are necessary positions per IEPs
Yes.
and program reviews and all that.
Yes, yes.
Can I just add that Danielle will be back next month, actually presenting, to really make sure that we have a plan that works, right? And we're not reactive. And it's really, sometimes it's hard to anticipate students who are moving into our district. We can't always have that, but we can't live that way either. And it's going to require more. I look right over Kevin, I can't see him, that's good. But it's going to require more staffing. I mean, and for me, it's about teaching, not about management, right? And so to ensure that all of our students get what they need, we'll be coming back next month, so.
And to sort of piggyback, you had asked one of the questions I was thinking, and I know we do have students who have these needs. I do think we also need to be careful that we don't put ourselves in a position where going forward, because we've had a lot of these new positions, and I totally understand that they're needed, especially with some of the students and the populations we have, but we have to be careful that we're going to be able to sustain these going forward. And it's tough because it's a lot. I mean, if you look at tonight, we're talking well over $200,000 in positions, and that's a lot. And just something that we have to be mindful for because it's budget season.
I was just gonna say, so if we could get, and I don't know, like regulation wise, if we could get numbers where we were last year, where we are this year, so we can start going into city council and just saying, hey, want to give you a little bit of a heads up. This is coming, and we're seeing an increase in the population.
And we have a pre-K, correct, in the city right now? And do we have numbers there already that are going to be projected for our kindergarten classrooms of students who are autistic?
Yes, we do.
So we have that projection, and so we will know that we can continue to employ people in that area.
As far as the community preschool programs, do you have numbers as to how many children were receiving the services around this time of the year versus towards the end of the school year? Just because I know it's still early in the year. A lot of these kids are still going through the process of being evaluated. So the numbers are going to grow significantly by April or May. So do you have numbers as to what the numbers were compared to in the past years?
So I can put those together for you because we do keep track on a yearly basis of the number of students that come through birth to 3 and into our pre-K programs. Many of the students that are coming from birth to 3 into our programs from now through the end of the year are students who are coming into our district programs. And we do occasionally receive referrals from like some of the community programs as they have students and they have eyes on them and they have some concerns. And I try to be a part of that process as well. I'll go in, I was at the YWCA this morning doing an observation of a student that's just been recommended to come to PPT1 with us. So just going in and really having a feel for the students that are out there. But a lot of the students coming from birth to 3 into our programs right now would be coming into our district programs. So it wouldn't affect the numbers as much with the itinerant numbers that that we have. But we could have, you know, some increase there too.
And with these new hires, what level of training will they be receiving as para-educators?
So the new hires would be following a Wednesday short day schedule, just like we have for our other autism programs, so that we have that time to provide training and collaboration for the teachers and paraeducators as well.
We also have an online program that we recently purchased this year to provide professional development for not only our paras but also our teachers, and that's new for this year. We've recently rolled that out at the PD for a lot of paras. So anyone new coming on board now, depending on what area they're working in, will have specific training as to, let's say, autism, for instance. Okay, so that would be part of for these folks coming on board. They would have that opportunity to. They'd be required to actually take those courses. Run about 45 minutes to an hour.
Do we have any sense of what percentage of our kids in kindergarten with an IEP did not have involvement with birth to 3 beforehand?
We don't. That would be very interesting to look at, though.
Yeah, and you know, because what Diana is describing is her experience as a preschool teacher at HRA, where kids would come in without having had birth to 3 services. It would take a little while to figure out, there's something going on with this one, and then it would take a while to work through the process of getting an IEP and getting the kids services.
I would say if a child was referred in October, it would be March or April before there was an IEP in place for a child.
Now that might have just, you know, that was a few years back.
Yeah, a few years.
So, you know, maybe.
Well, yeah, I will say we did a whole revamp of our process. I would say, I think it was 4 years ago. I think the programs that we have now and the processes that we have in place are very different than what I remember when I first entered the district, and that's when we were starting that work. We have a birth to 3 liaison who goes to the 90-day transition meetings, and then she's also part of our preschool assessment team. And I think that's been instrumental in really kind of bridging that gap. But there are those children who have not had birth to 3 services, and they show up in kindergarten classes or preschool classes. and that are kind of a surprise to us. And, then we have to kind of put services in place as quickly as we can to help them.
I'm not sure if anyone would be prepared to answer this here, but are these trends that other communities are seeing as well, as far as the growing numbers at the same
Yes.
rate that we are?
Yes. When I do the presentation next month, or in January, you'll see the prevalence for autism has just been on this upward increase. It really is, it's kind of scary, actually, when you see how that has changed over the years, and the increase that has been experienced everywhere. I'll do trainings on autism, and every time I do, I go to the CDC to kind of check and see what the prevalence rates are, and I'm always like crossing my fingers that it's at least remained the same, and it never really is. I mean, every couple of years, when they're kind of doing the dipstick to see, what the rates are, they just keep climbing. So.
And do we reflect those national trends locally?
What's that?
Do we reflect those national numbers locally?
So yes, actually we were just talking about running the data by the next meeting to see over the past 5 years, what does our trend line look like in comparison to that national trend line, that is always published.
So what we'll do is we'll compare it to, where we've been in the past. We will look at other communities in Connecticut, as well as other urban districts like ourselves, and we'll present that next month.
Does the district, with the trends moving forward, in the upward direction, has the district thought about, when hiring general education teachers in classrooms, have teachers coming in with also special ed degrees? So that this way...
So we always look for dual certification. I will say at our preschool level, we've been looking at the dual cert, which is a 113, which is one person, special ed and regular ed, right? As opposed to having the 065 and the preschool one. So yes, we do. But special education teachers, recruiting and retaining special education teachers, we're all struggling for those same people, and we're all grabbing them in every district. And so we think we have one, and then a district will come out and give another 10 or 15,000, and we're out of the running. And so that's happened on more than one occasion too. So I think, in the shortage areas, and special education it's a tough field. Education is a tough field, but so we have Ms. Putnam, who helps with the higher education partnerships of going and doing observations of student teachers, seeing who they are while they're working with our cooperating teacher, and typically we have them secured with a long-term sub position and a hire right after. And our partnership with the University of St. Joseph's is very helpful too. So yeah.
I thought a while ago they were talking about having the regular ed teachers have dual certification. I thought they were trying to go towards that at one time.
I don't, Tricia, do you know that? That I don't know any.
No, I don't see that happening. I know that they're in the higher education, CCSU, and of course USJ and University of Hartford. They're all looking to increase the number of credits for student teachers taking special ed courses in their undergraduate program. I know that they're looking into that, but I don't know if they're any head with that yet.
We're all in the same business. I was recently, a couple weeks ago, down this way. We went down to New Haven. We met with other urban leaders. We met with the bureau chief for special ed, the state of Connecticut, and also attorneys. And New Haven, Waterbury, everyone, they're all in the same boat. They're all complaining it's hard to recruit. The state has to come up with another formula, another way to fast track some of these people, because it's real difficult. And even like social workers, for instance, it's not considered a shortage area in this state, but in some urban districts, it is a shortage area. And that's an argument we made. And again, that's out of our hands. We can only lobby the department to make those necessary changes.
Okay. So let's go back and take these in order, unless there are still more questions.
Motion to take them together.
Okay, so we can take them all together. Any further questions about the four? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. So now, going back to item F.
Motion to approve a new position request for a 1.0 FTE behavior support assistant for Pulaski Middle School.
Second.
Well, Mr. Foran can speak to it.
I would say this is a position going to be funded through Pulaski's SIG grant, so it's not locally funded. Pulaski had a spike in discipline and suspensions last year, and the new principal has decided or determined that by adding a BSA and looking at some hotspot times of days and parts of the building to get covered by a BSA. The goal is to reduce outside suspensions. The belief that this is a 1 to 2 year position under the SIG grant, and over that kind of the culture and climate in that building can be improved to the point where that will no longer be needed. So it's SIG grant funded temporarily. Also, suspensions count towards chronic absence, so the goal is to reduce suspensions and reduce chronic absenteeism in the
Okay. Any further questions?
No, I'm just waiting for Kevin Kane to fall off his chair, and he hasn't, and he didn't during personnel or finance, so, I mean, I still have the same concerns about adding a position that I know we need, but I think we gotta start talking to the council now and get it in their head while they're starting to plan for the budget, to be like, you gotta give us a little bit more money. It's not a lot, but a little bit, and here's why, uptick in X, Y, and Z.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, moving on to item G.
Motion to approve a new position request for a 1.0 FTE family school liaison for the district.
Second.
Okay, brief.
Yep.
This was a grant that was written by one of our new FSLs, and it's for our small classroom setting over at Lincoln Elementary. That's the small classrooms that we have for some of our struggling learners. And so a grant was written. This is grant funded through McKinney-Vento, and I don't remember the name of the grant with the other one, but it's a second grant that we got for like 19 or 20,000. So it's fully grant funded. When the grant funds go away, the position goes away.
So, hang on, I think you were responding to H for Lincoln right
yes.
now?
Yes, I am.
So we're
So
talking
that's-
about
oh,
G, which
sorry.
is the district-wide one.
And so again, grant funded, that's from McKinney-Vento, and then the H is from the other grant that was written by our new FSL. I covered two.
With it being grant funded, and you can answer for both of them, but with the grant funded, is the grant just for 1 year? And do we have an obligation to cover, like, is there any obligation that comes from local with the grants? Because I know sometimes the grant doesn't cover.
Well, I think anything, right now, we're in the budget process, so I can't, I'm still, Solano to actually help me with a lot of things. I'm starting to accumulate the numbers right now for the budget. There's always concern. When we're in the budget process, come within a few weeks, hopefully I can let you guys all draft budget, I'll discuss in January. I don't know what the number's gonna add up to right now, so I mean, I'm sitting here right now, we're gonna be putting together. If there's a position out there, or 2 or 3 or 4, whatever, that right now is in a grant, and if that grant goes away, that position might still be in the budget for next year, in the January budget, it comes forward to the board. But really, our budget process for the old members is really a 2-part process. We do something in December, January, it goes to the, your board adopts something and sends it forward, it goes to the city, and then somewhere around June 1st or thereafter, the city actually gives us a budget. At that time, we meet again, we review the budget, because that's what our appropriation will be. So it's really a 2-phase process. So right now, the budget you're gonna get probably in January is a budget based on things that are happening right now, things that the superintendent may be proposing that's gonna be part of that. And then it'll sum up to a certain dollar amount, and then we'll take it from there.
Okay. Any further questions? We have a second motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, moving on to the family school liaison for the small classrooms at Lincoln.
Just
We've already talked about.
Yes.
Motion.
Motion, second. Any questions?
Motion second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Let's move on to item I.
Motion to approve new position request for a .4 full-time equivalent licensed practical nurse for Brookside School.
Is that second? I was gonna say, I was at the personnel meeting, and it's a Brookside student who has, can you say that?
Diabetes.
He's a diabetic, and he needs to have a nurse go with him to OIC to culinary.
Well,
Part-time.
For transitions and.
Yeah.
It's required.
Yeah. So we can't really say no.
Any further questions?
Just a point of information for people, this, because it is something that's medically required, we do get this through third-party billing. So it's not locally funded.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. On to item K.
Motion to approve revisions to English as a second language ESL teacher job description.
Second.
Any questions about this one?
No.
I do have questions on some of the new language. Well, it was here, and then there is added to it, such as provides capstone support in English and Spanish for high school students. But an ESL teacher is not required to be Spanish speaking, so I'm not sure how that is a requirement.
Well, it shouldn't say anything about the high school, that was supposed to be eliminated.
Okay,
So
high school
that was-
students was added, not removed. It's in bold, so it's like
Then that's a
added.
mistake, because this is an elementary position.
Okay, so we would strike for high school students on that
Yes.
bullet.
This is an elementary position.
So actually, the capstone just doesn't even exist there.
Correct.
So the whole thing is a strike.
Exactly. And we had some difficulty, Holly and I, sending the document back and forth, because for some reason the edits wouldn't take.
Mm.
So we had quite a couple of days of difficulty going back and forth. But it's an elementary position. And the reason why it's ESL and I'm requesting preference for Spanish speaking is because right now we sort of have, we're delivering ESL services, and we were providing some native language support to the native language support staff that we had. It's very difficult to keep the native language support, it's like a revolving door, and we keep losing them, so I'm trying to get this new position to service the schools that have the highest. We have three elementary schools with very high numbers, close to 70. And I'm trying to see if I could get an ESL teacher that's Spanish speaking to be able to do the pull-out and also do some pushing in the native language, and that would be for the Spanish speakers, because at these three schools, the majority language is Spanish.
I just want to say, since this is for K through 12, you should leave leave in what you want to strike out, because this is just generic, it's not specific to that one teacher, is it?
Right, so that's
Right.
part of sort of my continuing question. So is this going to be written specifically for the elementary? Because then there are other things like minimum, experience at the secondary level. Well, I know that was being stricken, but then K-12 is still part of it. And still there are other things like provide Spanish native support to students as needed, which just can't be a requirement if the Spanish speaking is a preference but not a requirement. So I think in wording that, if possible maybe, or something like that. You just can't require somebody to do something that they're not required to have as a skill for the job, is I guess how I'm.
And like I said, we had a lot of difficulty going back and forth. And really what I would need is a bilingual teacher. That's really what I would need, but no longer do we have the 009 certificate that's being given to the 009 certificate is no longer being.
Bilingual elementary,
Yes.
it does exist,
Well, it does exist for people who already have it,
right.
but it's no longer being given.
It is, I don't know if it's called that, but you can definitely still be a bilingual elementary teacher.
Okay, I was informed that it was. so
Yeah, I'll
go
look
back-
into it, because I don't, I mean. if we-
No, and I'll call the state because I was
Yeah.
having conversations with them about this.
Okay. Yeah, I would do that and
Okay.
check with Megan for sure how it's maybe worded now, but, yeah, either way, I know that it's very difficult to find people with the bilingual and either subject area, cert, or,
Right.
whatever. So a lot of places will do, the preferred Spanish in order to fill it, but if for some reason you cannot fill it with a Spanish speaker, then the person hired can't have as a requirement that they're providing Spanish
Right, that's
support.
why
So
I
that's,
would
I just wanted to make sure it's
prefer
worded.
I mean, of course, we would prefer the person to be Spanish speaking.
Right, I get that, yeah.
In light of just the confusion with getting the edits, I think it would be better for the board to see an actual full, clean copy that has all the right edits. So I'd like to motion that this be referred back to committee, so that we can make sure that all of the things that Dr. Sims brought up are taken into consideration, and that we make sure that what we have and what we approve is the actual board. So I'd like to move this to be referred back to committee.
Second. That's a
Okay.
real motion.
Any further questions on that? We have a motion to refer it back to committee. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Okay, the next position was a position request for the second language teacher that we just referred the job description back to committee for.
But there's two? I think it's okay to hire can you do that? Can you hire the person without having,
Or post,
But
can
how
you
do
post it
post
without
it?
without having the most updated, can you change it? I don't know.
I mean, technically, there is currently a job description for the position. And if I understand correctly, we revise job descriptions throughout time, and we often, we revise job descriptions, and, people who are hired are often grandfathered in, but the expectation is that they are bound by the new job description as we approve it. You're not frozen in, and we tend to keep, so I think it's perfectly fine to move forward with the new position request, and then
update.
try to get that, because we may not even get someone hired for this before we have a chance to revise and approve it, so.
okay. So, do we have a motion?
Yeah, I'd motion to approve the new position request for the English as a second language teacher district-wide.
Motion, do we have a second?
Second.
All right. Any further discussion on this item?
For teachers, no.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay.
Motion to add an item to the agenda. We have a acceptance of contract between the district and Delta T Group.
We have a motion to add something to the agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion on this item? This is the walk-in that was in your yellow.
Well, you can't get out of there?
Yeah, I can speak to it.
Yeah.
Well, we gotta put it on the agenda
Oh,
first.
sorry.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it's on the agenda.
Sorry.
Okay, well,
Motion to.
motion to put this on the agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Now you can explain.
So Delta T is a company that provides third-party services, supports. I approached them last month to find a temporary replacement for the BCBA. We lost our BCBA last month, and we're in the process of hiring a new one. In the meantime, this is a company that can provide service, and there are lots of them out there. They came in very competitive. So they provided a contract to us, and in looking at that contract, it was pretty light, and there's some issues, concerns that Shawana Tucker and I had. So we sent it to our attorney, and it went back and forth a couple of times, and this was the revision that we got back from Shipman at the middle of, right before the break. So this would allow us to hire a BCBA through them. They also provide para support, which would be great, because when you get a child in from, let's say, a Hartford or a place like that, who has an IEP, and we want an opportunity we want to meet that IEP, but at the same time, we want some time to get to know the child. If that child has, let's say, full-time adult support in that IEP, instead of going out and hiring a para, we can employ a para sub through an agency like this temporarily to see if we need that level of support. This is an opportunity to get to know that child. And they provide those services as well. And the paras in their company, they do diapering and things like that, which some of the other services do not. So they're very competitive, and I don't know how often we'll need them, but we need, we have a contract, and we're very comfortable with that contract now, and we need board approval for that, so we can move forward and get some of these folks in.
Is there anything in here, like you can hire that person? Like they can be contract to hire, like you can't pull them from the agency, or can you? No?
No. They have to work for us for
for a short period of time.
a period of time,
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it was, there were so many hours, I think it was like 600 hours, or after they meet those hours.
Then we can hire them,
There's no
or-
fee.
There's no fee.
We're free to hire, which is some other agencies, there's a hefty fee if you want to
Yeah.
take them.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Any further questions about this?
So this is, we usually do Kelly Services, right? Or no, is this in addition?
This is in addition to, and I'm also working on another one as a backup, because like, they have a couple of BCBA's right now that they could employ, that we could bring on board temporarily. If they're utilized by another town and they have no one, we need a backup. So I don't want to put all my eggs in one basket.
And Kelly Services doesn't offer para-educators or BCBA's, they're just teachers.
They do offer para-educators, Kelly does.
The para-educators that they offer, they have a no hands policy, so they can't put hands on, and when I say put hands, I'm talking about being in a classroom of a student,
They're
So
local company.
that's,
Yeah, they're a local company. Yeah.
There's no minimums or anything, like?
Well, they had that, we changed it.
Okay.
We made a few changes.
I'm trying to like scan real quick. It's not-
They had a dollar amount, a minimum, like at $7,000, that's gone out.
Okay. Motion to approve the contract between the Board of Education and Delta T Group.
Second.
Okay. Any further questions? Any questions? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Motion to add one more item to the agenda. This is for Mr. Prokoff. Motion to add discussion of board devices to the agenda.
I don't know. That's 2 walk-ins and 1
Second.
night.
Is there a second?
Second, sorry.
Okay.
I
All in
joked before I
favor?
could.
Adding an item on board devices?
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? All right, you're on.
Well, I can speak to it really quickly. The reason Mr. Prokoff didn't bring iPads to you, like we've often used iPads in the past to cut down on paper, but they're very limited, and they're also our iPad fleet is kind of aging for what we use as the board. It's also very difficult if you've ever tried typing anything on them or things like that. And I actually went up to Jeff and I said, I have something to talk to you about. He's like, that's fine, I have something to talk to you about. And he asked me if he thought the board would be interested in moving to Chromebooks, which is what we use in the district. It has a full keyboard. It would be frankly cheaper than iPads for the board, and it would allow us to be able to do board email, get our packets and everything on the device. I know there are some board members who have been very concerned about the amount of paper we have. And that's one of the things that we've done to try to reduce in the past, and I think especially with a Chromebook, we'd be able to even do more than we were able to do with the board, with the iPads, because there are software options out there for distributing board materials and things like that we could look into utilizing. So I just wanted to bring that up to the board and see what they thought. I think the cost would be below our bid waiver threshold easily, so we can give him permission and he can just do it.
And there would be a level of security on these.
Nobody with the name Diane.
Well, yeah, so they, like any Chromebook, you have to have a district account to log into
Right.
that, period.
Right.
So the level of security is everything is based off the cloud on there, and you have to sign in for it, so the level of security.
Oh, I'm just
is
concerned with people hacking in, that's all.
That happens. Anything's hackable
I was just
in
gonna
this
say,
world,
anything.
so.
But do you want paper?
And if we have Chrome and we're taking notes on it, that's FOI. Fine.
Everything's
Right,
FOI.
right, so,
Yeah.
so is this, right now.
Yeah.
So that's why I
So-
start.
I know, 6 of 1, half dozen, I know. I chuck it, throw it out.
Okay, so,
Security expert.
is there anybody who has concerns about going to Chromebooks rather than the old iPads?
I just want something I can do.
Okay. So is that it?
Just help out.
Like,
The one other question Jeff had raised is whether having touchscreen capability, because there's a lot of the Chromebooks now, some of them have touchscreen as well, if there's a preference for the board one way or another.
I like that.
I'm going to be fiscal conservative and say what's best interest for our fiscal responsibilities. Sorry.
I could give you some price points.
Please.
Basically to choose from, but I don't think it's gonna be much difference between touch and a non-touch. It
And
just
also-
might be a little slower to get the touch because they're in model changeover and we haven't purchased any of the newer touch ones yet. So there's a process of getting the branding and approval and such. So it's not like it's a huge difference in rate. It's just a little bit longer. That's all.
And just to clarify a couple things, so the touch does not eliminate your keyboard.
Nope.
You're just adding an option for clicking or whatever. And also, this is the Board of Ed's budget that is there anyway. It's not, we're not taking from kids' books or from whatever. The Board of Ed has a budget to operate as a board, and that's what it's from.
So I don't control that budget, so I'd have to work with.
Right, I'm just clarifying because
who does control that?
I know some of the eyeball, I can read eyeballs well.
No, that's basically through the board, and it covers things like when we go to cave conferences.
Right.
And I was about to say, I don't think we've ever gone through an entire board budget. Other things that have been covered in it in the past is if we want to do professional learning or if there are resources that we want, such as books around board operation, things like that. Those are other things that we have at our disposal, but it's a very small part of the overall budget.
How often do the Chromebooks have to be updated?
The end of life for a new Chromebook model is 6 years. And that's when Google will stop pushing auto updates to it, basically. Sometimes it could get pushed beyond that, but that also doesn't mean they necessarily don't work. But at that point, you're going to start missing out on security updates and things of that sort. So you don't really want to push it too much further, consider.
So what is the thought process after 6 years? A different type of Chromebook? Or whatever they come up
Well,
with?
6 years
upgrade.
in technology terms?
That's
Yeah.
not much.
It's a lot, yeah.
It'll be implanted chips in that.
In front of us,
Right.
right? We'll just
Our
wear it.
eyeglasses.
It'll be on, it'll be right on the table, right on the
You
table.
know, along with you and our fingers.
Make sure we're spending our money.
So,
Yeah, no.
any further conversations on this? What's your pleasure? Do we want to give approval to do it, or do we want to Do we want to authorize up to a dollar amount?
So I would say conservative for 10 would be $4,000 would cover it with
Yeah.
money left.
And if we were to do iPads,
It's way more.
I'm just,
It's
lot more.
roughly about the same.
Oh, really?
Basically,
I
but
would've
what
thought
you
it
run
would
into
be
with the
more.
iPads is when you say go to the schools you're representing, then your iPads don't work and you have to go through 5 different extra steps of
Yeah.
technical troubleshooting that I'm sure Nick, for example.
There's a
would
reason I bring my
anyway.
laptop and not my iPad.
Yeah.
With the Chromebooks, once you log in, it's gonna connect to our filters, know who you are.
Yeah.
And just make your life a lot easier in terms of.
Okay. I'd motion to approve, Jeff, just a budget of up to $4,000 to purchase new board devices.
Second.
Second.
Okay. Any further conversation on this? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
You could
Okay.
always say that.
Motion carries.
Motion to adjourn.